where we go to Japan for who knows what.
ALGS ようこそ日本札幌へ。
I didn't really feel like a champ when I won. I hate losing, just personal passion. I just want to win the game. I want to showcase to everyone that, basically anything's possible. I want to win again, and I want to win with Jessica and Legacy and have Winnie as well with us holding the trophy.
Moments that you get to witness in life that you may never come across again. That is the beauty of seeing someone, a team, a collective do something bigger than themselves and prove it on a world stage and do it in such a way that inspires others to be better.
In my mind, it's kind of like I have to win. That feeling of winning, you just feel on top of the world. Last time I won in the biggest stage was champs. And I can just remember just looking into the crowd and everyone has their flashlights on. Everything that you put into it was worth it. There's no better feeling in the world.
For me, this is just a dream. We have two of the best fraggers in the world, being led by the best IGL in the world, so a 3v3 is nothing for us.
For me, proving that I'm not the weak link, doing a good performance in Japan would be the ultimate thing.
Pues yo la verdad me siento muy emocionado, me siento pues listo para representar a todo México. Pues yo siento que para estar siempre como en lo más alto del juego, mucha pasión y mucha dedicación al juego. Eso es lo necesario para mantenerte en lo más alto.
I think there was a point where we all kind of realized we could win the whole thing. I haven't come this far just to come this far. I want to come first, and that's the only thing I'll accept.
And you need confidence in moments like this, when it's down and out and you're looking for who is going to step out of the pack and make a name for themselves. This is what we live for in the ALGS. TSM. We thought it was going to be them, but it wasn't. And you look at this and say, gotta mean something happens differently.
I think I've grown a lot, and I think I just have so much experience that I wouldn't say I've mastered the game. No, I know most of the things that you need to know about this game in order to succeed. Everyone just thought we'd be horrible without Hal, and clearly that is not the case. Although we have a different team, I just want to win again. I just want to win for my team and my family. To my previous teammates, have fun watching me raise that trophy again.
Been the worst year of my career so far. I think things are slowly picking up again. I always push myself to my limit, at least as close as possible.
I've changed a lot as a person, as a player. A few hiccups along the way, but I'm hoping to be able to build something. I don't think it's nothing I can't overcome.
I've only been at the top for a short amount of time. It was pretty rough at the start, but I'm only finding it as myself.
本当にやっぱり今まで勝ててないんで、それこそ世界3位、世界6位とか、その辺は出せたって言ってもあれなんですけど、チームみんなで出せたんですけど、やっぱり優勝してないんで、やっぱ優勝するのがモチベーションですね。
そうですね、ぶっちゃけるといつもの大会よりは勝たないとなっていう気持ちはもう数倍ぐらいはあります。ボコボコにされたとかだったらうわーってなりますけど、あと一歩だったっていうのが今年は2回連続で続いたので、そうですね、モチベーションにはめちゃめちゃなってます。次は頑張ろうっていう気持ちになりますね、すごく。
自分はもう本当に自分が最強だと思ってプレイしてるんで、いつももうそういうのも何も気にならなくなるぐらい集中してプレイしてます、いつも。いや、プレッシャーはそんなに感じてないですね。挑戦する側なんで、自分たちはやっぱ。
これまでやってきた世界大会の時はやっぱり海外の会場で開催だったので、ある程度アウェー感はあったんですけど、今回初めて日本開催ということで、たくさんの日本の方が見に来てくれると思ってるので、ホームで戦えるっていうのがとても楽しみです。
モチベーションはまあ本当に自分自身ずっと優勝を目指してきたんで、そうですね、本当にAPEX自身をまた盛り上げたいではないですけど、やっぱここで俺らが勝てばまた盛り上がるんじゃないかなって思うので勝ちたいです。
If I lose it all, slip and fall, will you laugh at me? If I lose it all, lose it all.
Fate is calling.
It's energy versus Optic. Dropped, tries to move in and clean up the pieces. Optic will fall. Energy clutch. He's got the power. He's got the highlight and Dream Fire.
Squad after squad, they fall. It's Nathan going crazy with the flatline.
Dojo are showing what they're made of with their fists. Timmy with the PK phase. They want to take down E6, and I mentioned that Snipe Down has the power.
This is all Zane, baby. Oh my God! It's Micah.
Coming close to send it right now, and how does it need to be off twice? TSM are your champions.
運命が呼んでいる。
The stage is set. The players are here. The teams are ready. Sapporo, are you ready? Because the time is now. 行きましょう! Sapporo の皆様、こんにちは。ALGS チャンピオンシップへようこそ。私は ALGS チャンピオンシップのホスト、ライアン・ハーツと申します。よろしくお願いします。Hello everyone and welcome to the ALGS Year 4 Championship. I am your stage host and my name is Ryan Hart and it is an absolute honor to be here. 40の世界最強の APEX チームが総額200万ドルという賞金をかけて戦います。すんごい戦いを繰り広げようとしています。40 of the world's best APEX teams will go head to head and lock horns for an amazing $2 million prize pool and of course the pride and prestige of lifting that trophy and being crowned the champions. ALGS がアジアで開催されるのは史上初めてのことであり、本当にすんごいことです。まさにこの今、札幌北海道で始まります。この場にいられて非常に興奮しています。ALGS has been all over the world, covered many countries and continents, but now, for the first time in history, it has come to Asia, right here in Japan, right here in Sapporo, Hokkaido, and I can't wait. A dream is going to become a reality. それではお引き続き ALGS をお楽しみください。It's going to be a stunning 5 days of action, and every player here knows that this is everything. And as the anticipation builds and the tension grows, it's time for me, your host, to strike the match that's going to ignite the flame of motion here on day 1 of the ALGS Championship.
From Los Angeles to Mannheim, final destination Sapporo here in Daiwa House. We are ready to begin where many players around the world have coveted to even join. This place, this moment, 40 teams, 3 players each at the championships for year 4. We welcome you for this moment. It's so good to be back. It feels like forever, but the ALGS is here with our biggest event of all time, and I'm so happy to be your host. My name is Rain Day, and I'm not alone. I'm joined by my friends, my colleagues, some of the best in the business, of course, Glitter Explosion, Snipe Down, and Jamerson. Lauren, this is iconic in a way that it's hard to describe. The feeling in this building is mesmerizing.
Literally goosebumps. The second all of that just kicked off, goosebumps down my arms. I'm shaking. I have so much excitement. I can't even begin to fathom how the players are feeling. We're here. We heard Ryan say it in Japan for the first time. It feels like we've been waiting years for ALGS to make it here. We're finally here, the biggest stage we've ever seen before. I don't even know what this week has in store for us.
And Snipe Down, as a player, as someone who has competed at the highest levels, you were in a little bit of that highlight reel. Snipe Down with a Prowler here. This time, you know, you got your skills on the analyst desk, but to be a player, to make it to the show, it's something, you know, you only get a few times. You can't guarantee.
I mean, this is something a lot of these players might only get one time. We are in the biggest stage that I guarantee any of these players have been on. I've never been on a stage like this, so even being here to see it, this is a giant stadium, like a sports stadium. This is the closest to like professional athletes anyone here might ever feel.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where you got to cherish the moment, cherish it, bring it in, and just know that all the work you put in is right here left on the table.
Jamerson, it's such an amazing thing. As we grow up throughout this, we have our families watching, we have little ones at home, but in the same way, the ALGS is a family also. And to get all the components of it here, from broadcast, from production, to players, to this desk, I mean, it's a massive effort, and it's all for what's about to happen in these next 5 days.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I never thought I'd be able to book an event like this, especially in Japan. You know, young Jamerson is so happy to see old Jamerson here on the desk for this, but I think it's a very special occasion because we all understand that the Japanese community in Apex Legends is absolutely massive. You see the turnout when Hal streams. You have a huge community of Japanese viewers that go to his channel, and of course all the streamers, all the content creators. So I'm glad that we're able to do this here, and like you said, bring it all together in the global family of Apex Legends.
I mean, it's not to, you know, put down any of the things that we've done in our history in ALGS. I mean, we've gone through years of COVID, we've gone through years of, you know, our first events, but this event, it's something special. Just to put in perspective, we've got more tickets sold for today than we had in our finals for Mannheim in Split 2 of our playoffs. And one of the interesting things is we're the guests. You might hear a little bit of Japanese through our microphones because we're not going in-house for this tournament. It is a full Japanese broadcast, Lauren, which makes us all that much more special.
Absolutely, and as it should be. Like you guys are saying, like the Japanese community is the beating heart of Apex Legends. We saw how important Asia Fest was when we were here in a totally different fashion. Now it's for ALGS, it's competitive Apex Legends. And this is going to give APAC North another opportunity to prove how good they are on this global stage.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things about it, too, as you mentioned that, we had an APAC North win our first Split 1 playoffs in Reject Winity. Can they do it again? And for those who are wondering how that will happen, let's walk you through the format of this event to see even how you get to a chance to hold up that trophy. Of course, our championship is very similar, if you've watched the ALGS, to all of our split playoffs, except it's an extra day. But we'll go from our group stage to our bracket stage to our match point finals. For the first few days, we'll have groups A, B, C, and D, all with 10 teams who have qualified based on seeding, go round robin against each other to determine who has the most points at the end of those 2 days. At that point, we'll split into our elimination round 1. We will eliminate a few teams, and winners will go safely into the next day, waiting, watching for not only elimination round 2, but a chance for them to go straight into match point finals. That will, of course, occur on Sunday, and that itself has one of the more exciting formats that we've seen in esports. Our match point final threshold is 50 points. You've got to get that amount, and then you have to win. So 49 won't get the job done. It's got to be 50 or we go again. What an exciting time. And again, that leaves us to talking about who are our stars in this Snipe. Looking at this overview of the 40 teams who have made it, this is the show, but everyone's got a unique story coming into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing is going to be this Falcons roster and how they bounce back. I know everyone talks about them. They once again had by far the best placements in every single one of the online scrims, the most kills. They're the best on every map, especially E-District. That's the map that I think is going to be the most important this weekend to determine exactly who is the most prepared going into this. It's a new meta, a new map implemented into the rotation, and Falcons are above and beyond the best on that. And I think if they can consistently show that this weekend, they will likely come out on top.
Yeah, we've seen teams show up and not show up. Jamerson, I mean, if you look at this, a team may be showing up, but they might just have a different name, or they might be playing with somebody else. The roster changes heading into this have been astronomical. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely big changes came out through. I think most importantly, it's going to be Moist getting picked up by Shopify Rebellion, or well, merging together, I think is the proper term there. We've also got Disguise along with 100 Thieves. We got Legends Gaming now swapping over to Disguise. It's a real merry-go-round of like all these teams getting changed around.
Elevate going to Virtus Pro, Icholos Lasers joining up with Dragons, one of our South American representatives as well. DSG, big name now, of course, like you said, 100 Thieves. But today, we get a chance to see all of these teams participate. We'll have A, B, C, and D going at it, but we'll start today in just a few minutes with A versus B. Then in the middle of today, we'll have C versus D. Go head-to-head with their 6 matches, and B, they'll have a doubleheader alongside D. A will have the short day today, B versus D. And speaking of Group A, not only do they have an opportunity to hoist the championship, but they've got an opportunity in some ways at redemption. Will they have made the right choices to get here? Well, our previous champion of Split 2 certainly hopes they will. Let's introduce you to Group A.
If you can activate that EMP, and oh my, oh my, oh my!
They work the akimbo to clutch it up in Base Clan!
Go high.
With these Mosiums able to do a lot of damage.
Oh, Sauce! Oh my god! Sauce! Nocturno! Oh, Nocturno!
He beats himself! He's just better!
They've been as good as anyone but the host! The host! But Evos don't matter when you're hitting stop right players. Sky! SSG will become your champion!
Group A, from Shopify Rebellion to TSM to 100 Thieves to NRG, Ninjas in Pajamas. I mean, the amount of talent in here, Snipe, but also the storyline. Shopify Rebellion making that big choice to drop Phony after that, pick up MT, and then have a chance now to go back-to-back for z-o-o-m and Koifel in a new version of themselves that was already successful.
Yeah, I think that Shopify team, they made a decision based on just internal vibes. They wanted to pick up someone that they could, vibe with a little better. And I think this Group A alone is probably the most stacked group out of all of them. The amount of teams in that group that either underperformed the last event, you look at the FaZe team, which completely underperformed, and then you look at some of the other teams in there. You have the Naskis that's finally back at this event. You have all these top NA teams, NRG back with Guild nonstop. Like, it is a feisty group, and I think it's going to be tough to get out of that.
We'll dive into those stories as the day progresses, but Jamerson, I mentioned them at the forefront. I think let's dive deeper into your one to watch for Group A.
Yeah, it's got to be super important to, of course, mention Shopify Rebellion, right? The returning champions here from Mannheim, Germany, and it's kind of unprecedented to see that kind of roster change after you win a LAN. But like Snipe said, internal vibes were off. They had to fix something up because you have to admit it was a little bit of a slower start. They didn't have a consistent group stage all the way through the bracket stage, and so I think bringing MT in here will be, if it was their decision, like it wasn't the time crunch, it was we want MT. He's what we need. He's the IGL that can go ahead and pilot us into the late game. And that's the thing. Coming in as an IGL on a new squad with 2 new players, you need to make sure that you have firepower so that IGL has the time and the space to be able to make the correct decisions. And that's what z-o-o-m and Koifel do. Playing off of each other, both incredible fraggers, can also play the anchor extremely well, but they just bring the firepower. And I think for MT, coming into this tournament, into the LAN, he'll have the time to be able to get the jitters out of the way while Koifel and z-o-o-m keep the lobby at bay.
I mean, it's good to be able to kind of take on that role. It's not new for MT, Lauren, but it is something that is maybe in a new space, but having z-o-o-m and Koifel, who legitimately are considered 2 of the best fraggers in all of Apex Legends, that's an easier way to start, knowing you've got them on your back. Even if you make a bad call, you might be able to get out of it.
Absolutely, and we talk about how important that trust is in your team, whether it's trust in your IGL or vice versa, knowing that if someone does have a slip up here and there, you are just that stacked that people can kind of clean up the mess. And when you combine that with the fact that you've got two of them coming off of that win in Split 2 playoffs, I mean, right now, they are a team that I think everyone has been talking about in the green room since we've gotten here.
So, some IGLs been celebrated and now joining. They're creating more chances to be successful and win yet another trophy. Some IGLs may be feeling spurned, and some teams may be feeling hopeful, especially in their hometown. Let's take a look at what Group B has to offer to the championships.
Sliding in, the last one alive, and Fnatic! Not Clutch and VK Gaming! Welcome for free!
Actually able to hold it out.
Oh my god!
This eastern side of Scooby was absolutely crazy.
You're getting
the
thing though, and we've got plenty of bullets! Oh, Yuka!
The only team in APAC North to win a championship so far, at least what we call kind of colloquial championships, lift a trophy in our Split 1 playoffs in Los Angeles, Reject Winity. They're here, but maybe the team we expected to do the lifting before all of that is in Group B. That's Fnatic. And Snipe, I know when you look at this, there's a lot of other teams with stories. I mean, VK Gaming, Complexity, what personalities, and Kimchi and Monsoon. But when you really look at it, in Japan, an APAC North hosted tournament, Fnatic has to be top of mind as your team to watch.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other team to talk about this than Fnatic. We are in their area where the crowd is going to get behind them. There is no other place for them to perform to the level that every single person who has watched them knows that they can perform. This team has been consistently good, but for some reason, it just seems like they can't get over that hump of succeeding at these massive stages. They've been the best in their region, no doubt. They got third in BLGS recently. They got 6th place in Mannheim and actually decided to make a team change after that. And I think the meta in realizing what was going to come had to play into that. So we have Laiku, who is on Newcastle, and he's been just a great fill for this team. This guy's been rock solid nonstop. The #1 person that everyone is just a fan of is Yuka F. This guy is just the most fun person to watch. He's up there in mechanical skill and everyone else. I mean, the shotgun meta, we're going to see some Skittle Cake like S finishes. And then Melstera, this is the new addition to the roster. This person is going to be the reps of the team. He is playing the likes of, he was on Mirage at one point, Newcastle, Gibraltar, Rampart. This guy is doing every single thing that he can to make sure that the roles are filled. It's a different meta, and having a player that can change those roles per map is going to be the biggest advantage that they have.
There's no doubt Fnatic has got a little bit of the crowd behind him, Lauren.
Sure.
It's gonna kick into this. I wonder if you're putting yourself in their shoes, what it feels like to jump into this moment, knowing, I mean, when are we going to get another LAN that is right here in Japan to be able to perform? They got to come out blazing.
Absolutely, and we talk about hometown advantage a lot because some teams kind of feed off the vibes in the crowd. If you can hear 5,000 plus people cheering for you, that kind of changes the vibe of your team and kind of gives you potentially an additional boost of confidence that you might need. And I'm glad that you bring that up as well, because it's not just Fnatic in that group though that does have that hometown advantage. There's a team that I do want to shout out, at least in that group, and that's Meteor. Okay, they are also APAC North, came through in the LCQ. And we talked about just how many different storylines exist right now across all 4 of our groups. Well, Meteor is a team that's never been to a LAN before. And talk about making a debut, if it's here in Japan, on the largest global stage you could possibly compete on. I mean, that's additional pressure, and to have something like the crowd at your back potentially supporting you could really make a difference in your debut group's performance.
Absolutely, and those little intangibles are so important. That's why we kind of lay it up, because getting here, you're dealing with not just the hometown advantage, you don't have to have the non-hometown disadvantage, which we've all gone through, which is we're 17 hours or 14 hours ahead of our time zone, sometimes not a lot of sleep, adjusting to food, which is let's be honest, it's Japan. It's not hard to adjust to Japanese food. It's that good, pretty much anything that you get. But overall, Jamerson, it is a different element. I kind of want to flip gears, though, and focus on maybe a story where, we've had some swaps in Guild, right? You look at Jesco and Legacy, but Phony's the story. The person that many people thought got spurned, winning Split 2 in Mannheim in Germany. Then Zainu and Koifel going on it with themselves, taking MT, and now Phony finding a spot with Guild. It's got to be a feeling where, I don't know, some people might be rooting for the revenge tour for Phony.
Again, it's this really odd year for a curse, right? You do extremely well at LAN, and all of a sudden, your roster ends up splitting ways for whatever reason, and that's what happened. And Phony was left in a very awkward situation because we did have roster locks shortly after Germany, and he had to find a situation extremely fast heading into BLGS. He had to uproot his life, go down to play in APAC South for BLGS. And he's not the only player, right? Arctic had a very similar story in that regard, but we're talking about Phony, the IGL winner of the last LAN, having to make that adjustment so extremely fast. And now, this, I think, comes down to a story of vindication. We're going to see these rivalries building up because it's not just them. There are multiple teams that have this similar storyline going through this entire 40-team roster.
I think it is a great story, and people obviously latch on to those things. One of the greatest stories, if you were scrolling Twitter, is actually presented by It's Timmy's mom. In fact, she already told us who she thinks the winners will be. Obviously, it's no surprise that 100 Thieves is at the top. Let's listen to Lace, who caught up with It's Timmy a little bit earlier, arriving at the venue. The storyline.
My name is Lace, and we are here in the Players' Lounge for ALGS Champs. And I am, of course, with the one, the only, It's Timmy from 100 Thieves. Timmy, today's going to be a little bit crazy, okay? So we're going to make this very, very quick. But have you had any sort of process leading up to today?
Like today, we actually boot camped in Korea for the past 2 weeks, and then we also boot camped in LA for a week. So we have a lot of practice and boot camping. We had a nice breakfast this morning, and honestly, I'm ready to go. I'm locked in.
Yeah, you're just moving all these time zones. That's absolutely crazy. Now, of course, for the fans at home, let's ask this again. Which character at the moment do you want to just delete from the game?
Delete from the game? Oh my gosh. I think Newcastle's just got to be deleted. This character is just broken. It's just cringe. It's just cringe.
You heard it here first, guys. It's cringe. Now, for our fans at home and anyone getting into Apex, what is the one thing you want to tell them how to improve at Apex Legends?
You can grab a controller. I mean, that's the fastest way to improve. But if you really want to, improve at video games, you just got to put a lot of time in. We put in maybe 8 to 10 hours almost every single day. And, it's like a job. It's literally a job.
Yeah, see, you heard that. Grab a controller, but this is the mechanical absolute warlord himself. It's Timmy. Thank you so much. Best of luck for the games today. And I'm sure all the 100 Thieves fans will be cheering you on.
Thank you.
I had a joke lined up, but I'm not going to do it right now. It has to do with Designful and being on 100 Thieves. But I do want to say that Timmy and his kind of presence has always been, I think, very tempered in the way that he's approaching at this level of his career. Knowing that, Lauren, it's not going to be him kind of joining a team and sitting back and being just a fragger or somebody who does it. He's taking a lot of ownership, I feel like, in how well his team does. And that's, to me, pushed him to a new level of maturity, ownership, and responsibility, but also I think a new chance for this 100 Thieves roster to really do something, especially with Jin Burton joining the likes of him and Designful.
Absolutely, and I think, for anyone who's been in the Apex Legends community for a long time, we've seen Timmy grow a lot from the Pathfinder trick play moments all the way up to where we are here in Japan for ALGS, and I do agree with that. I feel like we've seen a lot of maturity over those years, and they just feel more grounded as a trio. Like, they've looked really solid when it came to their scrims play. And I know he said doesn't like Newcastle, but this meta could work for them.
It could. I mean, are you questioning still the mesh of Jin Burton hopping into this team? I mean, this is a former DSG, roster, but without enemy, and obviously Jin Burton, who was displaced, no longer with Falcons.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, it's tough for Timmy to go from a team with, the Walty and a team that he has vibes with going from the Designful where everything's hectic and stressful to the good vibes where everyone is loving each other back to Designful, and then you don't have enemy anymore to at least be that really good spirited person. Jin Burton, he dealt with Z-o-o-m before, and so he's not combative or anything. It's not like that, but it's a different mesh of things that I think it's tough going from great to back to that, and it's going to be interesting to see on the stage.
You know, I feel like it's funny that we get a chance to talk about the personalities, how they impacted so much. But it's true. Going from Designful to somewhere else to back to Designful
Yeah.
is a little bit of a joke in our community. But it's true. I mean, that type of personality, it urges you to perform. If not, it's going to let you know about it, Jamerson. And but it feels like, Timmy, on the second round, you know, this is championships. There's no excuses anymore. You got to make it work, right?
Yeah, and honestly, with the kind of time crunch that a lot of people were underneath, I completely understand. And Jen Burton needed to find a hope. It'd be criminal if he wasn't at this LAN whatsoever, especially with the last couple of years of performance that he's had. So I'm glad that they were able to get him in and that he will be joining this squad. Like Snipedown said, though, he has come out from the fire. He knows what it's like to be between two heated personalities in Hal and Zero. So I think he will kind of, in his own awkward way, slot in extremely well on that roster.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe a different way to think about it is both of those players have been through IGLs or with teammates that are loud and love to let you know what's happening, so they're used to it, and maybe it meshes. I'm certain that 100 Thieves will hope that it does this time around, and all of its Timmy fans around the world. And Jim Burton, shout out. I don't know if your parents are here this time around, man, but shout outs as well to Papa and Mama Jim Burton. Good luck to him. Let's talk a new addition, not in players. We have so many teams and rosters we'll key you in on as these games are getting set up. We appreciate you guys hanging with us while we get ready to go. But a new map that's in the rotation. This was the introduction in championships, E-District. Snipe, as somebody who plays, and obviously, you know, we're still in the process of learning, what's been your experience seeing E-District come into not only Apex Legends, but the ALGS and now be featured here on day one?
I think, honestly, it's so cool going from the beginning where Kings Canyon is kind of like a rundown map to this like futuristic, giant skyscraper buildings where, like, you know, that's what we were given to start. It's like, oh, and then now we're here. And seeing a new map put into the pool, I've talked nonstop about how I think E-District is going to be the most important map this tournament. It's going to come down to who is the most prepared. And my thing is, I mean, look at all the different choke points on this map. It's actually really tough to get through some of these areas from some of these POIs. Some you have to loot faster. Others you play edge and rotate around and loot up. My thing is, I would be surprised to see some maybe Valkyries on this map, because I think getting the perk and getting over the wall and getting to the spots with 2 support defensive legends on top of that could be a play later in the tournament when it starts to get more congested, because we know the difference in scrims versus live events and how important it is to get there as fast as possible.
Things do get congested in E-District. That's one thing. Rotations and timing. There's been some great knowledge released by coaches and analysts on Twitter about that. 30 seconds could be the difference between arriving within top 10 or arriving completely out of top 15 into top 18 in those spots, and basically facing down a ton of charge rifles and Nemesis as you try to walk it in. Of course, as we look to start this off, Championships is here. We have to talk ourselves about who we think is going to do well. Group A versus B. We set up some talent predictions like usual, and it's time to reveal who we've gone with. I'm going with, come on, the tried, the true, the classic. North America lost to APAC North in LA. Well, maybe North America is going to return the favor here in APAC North. TSM to start it off. Glitter, you went Fnatic. That makes a lot of sense. And you know, that was a great choice as well.
Snipe was just so convincing with everything he was saying. I couldn't get him out of my head. And, you know, hometown advantage, kick it off here strong in groups, right?
Yeah. And Jamerson, no difference here. Snipe went with TSM. Jamerson, you went Fnatic. So we got a little split, Jamerson, on the board here.
I don't know what happened. You know, just I was back there in the green room. They were like pumping Mrs. Green Apple like over the speaker, and I was just feeling it. So yeah, I am definitely here for the home crowd advantage for Fnatic, and I definitely think that they have a really excellent map draft for this group stage, and they should be able to take a win.
Reddit, also, we are including your picks this time around, which means that you get a chance to beat all of us, which is a fun little game we get to play. But I'm with you this time around, so we're staying the same. The other thing that we want to mention that is really important is you could hear the crowd in Daiwa House is, of course, if you are watching, there is a way to earn some goodies. Now, I know that a lot of you will want to see that, but if you are also wanting to watch in your own way, well, we've got a surprise for you there. Face It Watch is back. That means that you have a chance to watch the ALGS your way. You want to hear a voice comm that maybe you wouldn't hear on main broadcast unless they went to a listen-in. You want to see a rotation of the team that you told your friends is going to take it all. Reddit, you want to watch TSM and join me and Snipe and prove that they're going to win? Well, make sure you catch every rotation by going to Face It Watch. Faceit.com/watch. You can check out the ALGS your way. Also, Twitch drops, as I alluded to earlier. As you are watching, whether on Face It and on Twitch, you will have a chance to earn some goodies throughout the week. Wednesday, we're kicking off with the ALGS Championship Trophy sticker. You just need to watch for 30 minutes to claim that. Each day, we'll have a new prize, a new weapon skin, a new character skin, a new holo spray. And on Sunday, the gold Nessie gun charm with the championship trophy. That's pretty hype, I gotta say, Lauren. That's looking good.
Every time we get these Twitch drops, I have to remember to make sure that I get at least the match point finals day one.
Right. So we'll see. Good luck with your Twitch drops. Good luck with our 40 teams because they're about to kick it off. I'm not in-house, but I'm hype anyways. So it's time to introduce our casters, two beautiful human beings dressed ready to go and impress with our first cast. It's Dia and Graceful.
Woo, thank you very much, Randy. That's a good way to start things off, Graceful, as we are that much closer, so incredibly close, to beginning the first game. I'm glad that we have a second to talk about what we are going to see, because our analyst desk has set things up really well, but Graceful, we're starting things off on a map that we have not seen played in the ALGS before. E-District is going to require a lot of time to break down, and that's to say nothing of the teams and the roster shakeups that our analyst desk already alluded to moments before. Game 1 is booting up as we speak, and so let's start thinking about what the next couple of maps will look like. This will be E-District where we start off. We'll do the first 2 matches there, and then we'll move over to Storm Point, at which point we'll do 2 matches there, and then World's Edge. Old, gold, familiar, whatever you think of World's Edge, that's where we're ending.
Yeah, I think that starting on E-District, which I believe most teams are deeming as the most balanced one due to the fact that they haven't been prioritizing picking those POIs on this map and mainly focusing on World's Edge and Storm Point. I think people want to have a solid, stable start, and with the fact that this map is so easy to rotate on as well, I think we'll see some fast rotates rather than late.
Yeah, I'd imagine that on E-District, a map that really rewards people being able to get into buildings. It kind of reminds me of old World's Edge, back before we broke a bunch of buildings apart and removed a lot of the city structures. And instead, when we had so much safety that you could hold on to, early rotations were super valuable, and I think it'll reward a lot of teams. You saw me pick Guild. I know that we were discussing maybe some disagreements about that, but it'll reward, say, maybe teams like Guild that are looking for more of a zone-heavy playstyle.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, early rotates will happen, and like you said before, everybody's playing around buildings, but the scariest part is when you get held out by normal weapons, you're kind of scared.
Yeah.
Getting held out by 7 billion Sheilas, however, is a vastly different feeling, and I also agree with you in terms of, Guild being capable of closing it out potentially, but there are plenty of strong teams here, but we cannot forget that the meta we're currently in with the amount of support players, and even if you get openers, even if you get downs, it's a lot harder to close out fights, and longer fight means higher chance for 3P, and it doesn't go as easy as just 3v3 nowadays.
No, there is a very high barrier to execution, and we got the chance to watch a few of the scrims yesterday, you and I, Graceful. I'm really curious what now the changes between what we saw yesterday and today will be. We're going to start things off nice and easy on E-District. There's not too much to worry about, as we don't have a lot of teams that are going to fight early, and like you said, there's a lot of ability to reset at any given point.
Yeah, so I mean, as I said before as well, and speaking from yesterday, we saw a little bit of maybe 15 teams alive very early on. I think we'll see the same redeeming factor here, where plenty of teams will be alive. In scrims, we tend to see a little bit less. Teams try to push the limits, try to take fights that they normally might not have taken. But however, now that we're live on land, first game, people are still feeling a little bit jittery, just woke up, good night's sleep, bad night's sleep, could have been several factors. However, I think we will not see many fights, especially seeing where the zone might be ending closer towards the center of the map as well. We'll see a lot of teams alive for sure here, Dia.
You know what's curious is I heard Snipedown talking about the potential Valkyrie pick on E-District just to get over a lot of areas that might otherwise be impassable due to the map. It's funny that there's only one team doing that. Meteor is the only team that's really prioritized running the Valkyrie at all, and that'll, I hope, be helpful to them, since you are giving up other picks, like, say, the Catalyst, like the Rampart, in order to do so. Virtus Pro going to drop back down. It seemed like they had a good rotation.
Yeah, no, that was hard because they were trying to take an evac, but if they stuck it, the last guy would have 100% been blasted off the evac. They opted to triple drop, make sure that if somebody goes down, we're ready to reset. I think it's a safer bet than praying that everybody gets off the balloon, because losing one early, although it's easier to get them back into the game in this meta, not ideal. That's a good play in my opinion, very safe.
Yeah. It really is, in this case, easier perhaps than it has been to get people back in the game, but when they get full thirsted further away from you, as fun just was, that's when things can get really tricky. It does look like the Ninjas in Pajamas have picked a fight as well, and that's going to be up against Virtus Pro from earlier. Quick reset coming in. He's going to have Slayer at nearly full HP, but that nade solves a problem quickly, and Ninjas in Pajamas with a re-knock should have secured at least 1 KP as Zach and Lou run for the hills.
Ninja starting up really hot, saying, hey, we saw you guys hop off the balloon, we're not letting you guys go. And C9 even joining in on the action because, like I said, teams are rotating early. Teams are already setting up. Now, they're getting picked, VP is getting picked apart, and it's not a good look.
The Ninjas are going to keep running on by. They do have a nice bit of Evo to collect in front of them, and we looked at the ring a little bit earlier, Graceful, so it's worth noting as well that as much as the Ninjas may enjoy picking up KP, they've also already got a fantastic spot in zone, which is a style that they very much like to play.
Yeah, Nasky has always been looking to play early, like rotates, ever since I've been competing with him for the past 5 years. Always been looking to be fast rotates, take the kills, and always good at reining it, like dialing it back down on the pace a little bit. We might have gotten a pick and been hungry, but we're happy with that. We're going to move to the objective, which I think is really important to stay disciplined.
Green Stego, who you might know as Makers from the last LAN, have shown up and already gotten pretty aggressive. They're making it work up against Oblivion, who have just Blinkzer left. Now, Oblivion did qualify through the North American LCQ to be here. This first game maybe not going the way that they had imagined on White Shields with 1 person left, but Blinkzer is the sneakiest Gibby I've ever seen.
Very sneaky indeed. I think he has the potential due to the fact that, plenty of craftings around them as well nearby. The real question is, it's all about timing. Can you make it back out into the outer circle while not trying to run into the teams that have been stacked? It's all about timing. Could happen. A little bit hard, but we'll have to see.
Take a look at the southwestern side. Disguised and Fnatic rotating alongside each other. This could be very interesting as Fnatic started at Street Market, have not yet moved, but now have somebody who's going to be cutting them off on the rotation, forcing Fnatic to mirror them likely.
Yeah, Fnatic playing the same setup as I believe they do on Stormpoint as well, liking to play a little bit more on the edge, grabbing objectives, making sure they're strong and healthy going into the fights. Whereas, like, if you early rotate, you might be able to, charge up your Evos and get ready to fight. But when you come in late with the zone, you're stacked, you're juiced, you're not afraid of anybody. And if anything, that's Fnatic's playstyle. They know mechanically they're super gifted and they're ready for bubble fights more than anyone, I would like to say, in this meta. And if they're also stacked, I don't think they'll be scared of fighting anybody, and that's the go-to.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the loot bin reset now.
Yeah.
If you're able to make it out to a point of the map where no one else cares to be around Zone 2, then you are going to be a very happy person. Perhaps not as happy as you were when gold knockdown shields were just everywhere. that was a wild time in Apex. Although, in many ways, I think we have found that with support legends, maybe we don't need gold knockdown shields so much.
Yeah, but speaking of gold, I'm looking for that select fire charge rifle. I want to see that bad boy in action because that's one of the weapons that's the newly addition one to this meta as well. And I think, as we can see as well, a lot of people are opting for more snipery action. And charge rifle, honestly, with select fire is scary.
Yeah, very much so. I'm surprised to see that Complexity didn't pick one up. I mean, Kimchi is going to be rocking mid-range with the 30-30, but I'm most curious when it comes to snipers, what Monsoon has been able to pick up, and I'm not seeing him run a traditional sniper. Instead, he got stuck with a triple take due to an early rotation.
Yeah, early rotational is that's kind of one of the things you have to give up is that, hey, are we going to rotate early? We might have less loot, but if you're in a spot when you're playing you have to remember there's plenty of games, you want consistency, and I always say this, 5 points on average per game, you're gonna make top 10 cutoff, give or take ±5, and I think that's what they're opted for. Triple take or not, it's still a good close range weapon to, you know, compete a little bit with shotgun because it's a jiggle peek weapon, and that's enough for a bubble fight.
Yeah, I mean, very similar to the G7 in that way, where you can actually output good mid-range damage, although I'd say the G7 in a slightly better spot right now, specifically due to the hop-up.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would definitely say for mid-range and longer ranges, but if depending on what they're using it as, you know, close-range shotgun, if you don't find a shotgun, because now everybody's running shotgun.
Yeah.
If you don't have a triple take, could fit that for the moment. Scout, however, definitely. If you want to go for the mid-range poke, it's way better, I think. Always been solid.
Yeah. The Scout has had very few times outside of favor in the ALGS. To touch on what's going on right now, Meteor, who we're mirroring 100 Thieves, they're off in the Northwest, and honestly, not too much is happening over here. The biggest focus for the Northwest would be if eventually Meteor and 100 Thieves both have to go through Guild. This choke point could get a little interesting, but right now, really nobody's had to move at all from the center of the map. Energy Bank, it just seems like the place to be until eventually we have to start leaving buildings.
Yeah, and leaving buildings is scary because now we're seeing, you know, the collapsations on both northern side and southern side is that even though you're getting held out by one team, depending on how many layers there are, you might be thirded or even fourth partied. And I think it's definitely scary because nowadays, even if you bubble to survive, another team bubbles on top of you and you're immediately in a fight again. It's scary because the gap closing in this map specifically is a lot easier than other maps due to the fact there's so many obstacles that you can hide behind. Rather than, you know, Storm Point on World's Edge, you're kind of in the open, you're stuck in the open. Here you have cars, boxes, like we see there, a train, a bus, a small hut. You got everything to just gap close, and sometimes you don't even see it because there's so many corridors and nooks and crannies, right?
Yeah. And then you've got the whole compositions of bubbles, and castles, and Catalyst. See a lot of people running Catalyst as well. Burhol's choosing to run the Rampart does do some nice damage in here, and as much as this cover of the truck looks good, FaZe, who are up to the north of TSM, are really suffering, and Source X and Y are near there. They could get into this fight. FaZe get another bubble up, but this is not looking good. X and Y do have to retreat, but FaZe do get one knocked. Cinetic back down. I'm very curious to see whether they survive.
Yeah, I think, though, they only sent one. Oh, another fight, though. Big bubble fight, speaking of. And even that cost.
And that's Oblivion, gone. Our first team out, despite having made it back to all 3 players. That was a really difficult game for them, of course, as Oblivion did get set back early, but it's Virtus Pro that end up collecting the kills.
Caustic, we can't forget about how Caustic has dominated previous metas as well. And we always, you know, use a combo Gibby and Caustic, and that's not gone. The synergy is still there between characters. We didn't really get to see the whole fight unfold, but I'm sure that they had good, you know, a good solid bubble fight.
I mean, that is one promise that this meta is absolutely going to fulfill. We are going to get a lot of nice bubble fights, especially when we reach the later stages of this game. It has been a pretty calm one so far, having only lost 1 team. And I suspect that even on the next zone close, we lose 3-4 teams maximum.
And also, looking at the top left right here, it says loot bins will reset. What does this mean, really? Everybody gets stacked that's on the outer edge or close to any bins, really. Is that, you know, I think that you might have been even overstacked. You get gold stuff, you get everything.
And right now, one of the teams that I am absolutely thinking of when we're looking at this loot bin reset is Fnatic, who were playing on the slow rotate really early on, who are still doing exactly that. They are down in the south with Green Stego, and Fnatic, Green Stego, and TSM are going to have a lot to contend over.
Speaking of TSM, they've been sitting in their spot forever, whereas Fnatic has been going around charging up, and they're going to be more than enough ready to take on TSM and even Green Stego, I believe.
FaZe starting to move in. They do lose Nags, however, and this is FaZe after the relocate from the truck. They don't actually end up making the push, and instead get shut down by Virtus Pro. Again, we're seeing that Caustic work.
This is the crazy part about Caustic. Since we are fighting in corridors and stuff, gas alone will pressure you so much because you can't stay in the gas. They get, like, the Caustic will start dominating you, and if you run out into the open, you either have to use your utility to stay alive, the defensives, or you have to take the fight in gas. Like, which one do you really pick? VP been making Caustic work really well so far.
And they have already surpassed what you set as sort of the base expectation for what you should do in a game. 5 points a game, they've already got 6, and we're not even in top 15 yet. Virtus Pro opening up this game in a very aggressive fashion that I didn't expect from them compositionally.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoy seeing that, but now we're also seeing other teams start collapsing. The next zone is moving towards the east side of the center, and this doesn't have that many playable areas, I'm not gonna lie, because all the playable areas actually got moved, the zone pulled away from it. We're gonna see a huge collapse on the west and north side. I think whoever wins the southern side and to the southern east side, unless they get contested from the north plate, might actually take home the game. I'm looking at the likes of Fnatic and TSM, which we're seeing on our screens right now. Are they gonna play nice and play together, or is somebody gonna take over?
And like you said, Fnatic, they are way more looted up, but TSM have been here since the dawn of time. They already know all the teams in the area. Fnatic are gonna have to adapt quickly. 100 Thieves do not make the cut, however, being taken out by the Ninjas in Pajamas. Fnatic, with a nice setup, look pretty unpushable right now, but TSM are trying to keep their neighbors honest, as these two will be right next to each other.
Yeah, they're just playing nice together right now. The whole thing comes to the zone after this one closes. So zone 4 closing is where the action will happen. But we also see Source X and Y sneaking up on the southeast side I was just talking about. Now we'll see who actually gets to control the southern zone, because all the teams on the west are just going to end up collapsing each other. Same for the north side. I really want to see on the southern side what ends up happening, because that's honestly where the big action will happen later on.
Fnatic are pinging the truck that FaZe were playing just a few minutes ago. We know how risky that truck can be, and I don't think it's gotten a lot better this zone flows. In fact, it may have gotten worse, but what are Fnatic's best options here? Because they're sandwiched between two teams right now, pushing the high ground is going to be terrible for them. They get shot in the back by TSM. Pushing TSM, they get shot by X and Y.
Be the bread. Right now, they're the ham. We don't want to be in the middle, and you need to make the option. I think rotating towards the truck could work due to the fact that you're now holding out TSM if you do that play, because if you pick a fight on either sides, you know for sure Source X and Y or TSM will 3P the opposite. So I think making a play for the ban, or even deeper, could be an option.
TSM walked up to that. They almost got a knock as well. Zapka getting very aggro to back up Verhulst, since he's of course got the defensive tool of the bubble to make Verhulst that much safer. And it did force a bubble out of Fnatic as well, which is huge because it means that Fnatic cannot rotate until that bubble is back up off cooldown.
Yeah, this rotate will be really hard because as you see, X and Y on the screen is looking to just gate, like, they're just trying to hold them out. Regardless of who it is, we're gonna focus them and they trade, we can clean this up and we have the entire side. But we can also see like the likes of Virtus Pro looming, NRG looming. Everybody's slowly inching in towards the zone and fights are starting to happen, like I said, on the west side. And our Ninja's gonna mop up more teams because they've also been low-key under the game, but they've been consistently getting kills as well.
Yeah, and Ninjas are playing on the edge just like Fnatic were. Fnatic actually making this rotation work. Remember, we called out the Dome as being a particularly useful cooldown to make this rotate. They use it, they make the rotate work, and now I hesitate to say that TSM is in that much more trouble. I think this is still a really nice position for TSM to play, albeit one that's a little more exposed to Gibby ultimates.
Definitely more exposed. The issue is not really their positioning in that house, it's how well do they get pinched by the team coming in from the west side. We saw the likes of Ninjas cleaning up Green Stego, EXO also being closer nearby. It all honestly depends on who the focus is on, because if you have a Sheila and you're just poking to poke, being in that small bunker is not that good.
Yeah, this is where Virtus Pro...
Yeah, they would slam. They throw the little stinker right in there, dude. It's over.
I wonder if Virtus Pro will actually get to see any of this, because they're playing a little further north, sort of in the open area, where Caustic isn't going to get nearly as much value as he has throughout the rest of the game, so perhaps by virtue of where they're standing. But we've got a couple fights breaking out meanwhile, and Meteor have come into third, say fourth party. The fight is both Cloud9 and VK Gaming do go down. This is more of a cleanup by Meteor. They didn't start the fight, but they sure finished it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the fight there. 3Bs, like we said about the collapse, so we see plenty of fights getting taken right now. I think, though, VP is still in the same spot where they cleaned up them underneath in the tunnel earlier. Now we're seeing more shotgun fights, more bubble fights, more Newcastle fights, and I'm all for it.
Guild going down. Shopify Rebellion applying pressure with the Sheila. This is the sort of spray and pray mechanic with the Sheila. Newcastle Res gonna go off for TSM. This is up against the Ninjas, who do go down. And it's a nice shot by Verhulst with the minigun to get everybody back to safety.
Yeah, and seeing Ninjas get eliminated, it just opens up for EXO because they definitely keep track of the kill feed, seeing, hey guys, they traded, can we clean this up? And TSM gets mobbed, and now Fnatic decides to join the fray as well. The fight for the Southern has now started. Source X and Y still looking to just hold them out, but Fnatic is slowly pulling off and say, hey, you guys can keep the loot, we want our place to rotate in. you know, we don't want to both die here because we're both getting held out. Let's just split our ways and see what happens.
And even after they come back, Fnatic give up the space that they earned. EXO-Clan continue their fight. Maybe Fnatic comes back, but up against Disguised, I'm not sure who's going to win this. EXO-Clan do go down. Disguised get the res. Virtus Pro fall as well. And we are down to just 8 teams as Fnatic look for a fight and end up claiming one. X and Y have lost just a single player, but with Source giving up their position, Fnatic know that it's their time to take the high ground.
This is the biggest opportunity for Fnatic that I've seen. Virtus Pro decided to engage on X and Y, or vice versa, we couldn't really see how it unfolded. Fnatic has an opportunity to clean the southeast side, which I talked about earlier. If they clear this space and they can push everybody else into each other and be the bread, they might take home this game.
They're playing very patiently right now. I think Fnatic are aware that by continuing on that rotate, by continuing to push Source X and Y, they could have a team come up behind them. So right now, the teams that are surviving are having to play patient, and that includes Meteor, who just, again, went on a third-party rampage, helping clean up Shopify Rebellion.
Yeah, the hardest part about this now is that seeing DSG and Complexity fight on the west side of the map is, do you opt for high ground or low ground, Dia? There's the tunnel underneath where the zone is in as well as on top.
Complexity do get one knock. That's an Arcstar that does it. And now player K has got to commit. This Mastiff is working for him. Hits the res real quick. And Arctic is going to get pushed himself. Disguised are on the ropes and they are down. Complexity turning things around from behind the Newcastle wall.
Yeah. Now it comes down to the top 4 only, right? And it's so much space to play that I think teams are just looking to guarantee their own space, slowly inching forward. But like I said, are you opting for low ground or high ground? I think high ground wins the game, but do you get thirded if you take the fight against Meteor that's currently on top? Or do you go for the safer bet of saying, hey, we just play for second place, let's go down below? But either or, if both teams do it, it might end up being the wrong play or the right play.
Yeah, I like the idea of high ground a little more, if only because you can see what's coming. This is the problem with where Fnatic are at right now, is that having opted into low ground, there are a lot of teams that can come at you that you cannot see coming unless you're actively peeking them. Whereas Meteor on top are going to own the bridge. It's now Complexity, Source X, and Y that really get to decide who gets the advantage in this game. And Source X and Y no longer get that say.
Yeah, Source X and Y getting out now. Fnatic already underneath. Now it comes down to whether or not Complexity fights Fnatic on the bottom, but if either or decides to fight the top, all you need is one evac to join the fray up top, and you can close out the game with a big 3-peat.
Complexity have to make a decision, though, because it really does come down to them. If they do nothing, then they just die, and they die for free. Yep. Complexity have managed to climb a little bit further up onto the high ground, and this bubble is buying them some really nice time, but already we've seen the mobile minigun tear through the rampart cover, and Complexity are going to have to take a fight, leaving this open for Fnatic. This fight does mean that Fnatic, knowing that it's going on, could third party.
Yeah, Fnatic sitting outside of the bushes right now saying, hey, you guys fight, we'll join the fray later. Complexity, however, used all their utility, is gonna get punished by Meteor from above.
4 with the Mastiff, does find the first knock, but it's answered back, and Fnatic do show up on the high ground. Now they've preemptively used the bubble. It's a Peacekeeper in the hands of Leica, and Meltstera already whipping out the mobile minigun, takes out Complexity. They have got very little resistance in front of them as Fnatic set up the third party, watch it happen, and come in, taking the very first win in Japan!
I told you about Fnatic! It's the home stage, they are good at bubble fighting, they decided to opt for low ground, join the fray later on high ground, they closed out the game. Honestly, the last 3v3 wasn't even close, they just mopped the fights easily. Humongous game to start the day on, especially at home.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very well-played game from Fnatic, and to me, it wasn't so much about the end game, which was very good from them, but it was really about the mid game, and specifically the transition that they have from right next to TSM, sandwiched between TSM and Source X and Y, to then take the cart that made the biggest difference.
Yeah, and you know, we saw early on, maybe for the 2 full zones actually, they were on the outer edges just looting, just getting objectives, looting. But the biggest part about, you know, playing macro is you need to pick which side you come in from. They started northwest, they went all the way southwest, decided to offer southeast. And it was great really, because now they just had a 3v3, got into the train, They didn't even make the opportunity themselves, by the way. So that was really good to opt for the X and Y fight on the east side.
Oh, it was fantastic, and it's a 22-point game now for Fnatic. Meteor do come in behind them, and Meteor really impressing in this first game. That's 14 points to Complexity's then 10, who come up in third. Complexity really had a difficult decision to make in that last game. I don't really think that there was a way that Complexity could have won.
Yeah, Complexity top 3 here as well with Meteor and the likes of Fnatic winning that game. Yeah, Complexity didn't have much room to make plays here, but you know what you have to do? You never play for the win. For consistency, they could have gotten second with 3 kills. Instead, they opted to say, hey, let's just place low, hope that they fight. I would say opt for the 3v3, get the kills and die second, and you have more points on average. It's way better than hoping that something happens in your favor. Always stay proactive, because when you're reactive, a lot of the times, it doesn't work out.
So when you say that Complexity could have gotten second, do you mean by going onto the low ground and fighting Fnatic?
Yes, I think either or. Either you int up top, you use your utility to fight immediately what happened to them, they get peeked over the top and they died, right?
Yeah,
they either do that to Meteor, or they opt for the 3v3 down below. But regardless, they just go for kills, because that's the best way, because realistically, you're not going to win that game, and you just need to make sure you get as many points on the table as possible, and I think taking a 3v3 and thirsting whatever you can is the best way.
Yeah. There is a lot to digest after this first game, and it's already a very exciting one. We heard the crowd getting excited, but it's time for us to take a very short break, as Game 2 on E-District will be coming up in just a few minutes.
Reptar goes down.
Oh no, you tune into that.
They went to make a gondola play.
And Reptar dies to Bolin. NRG now dying early. They're going right into Moist Creek. And I have the Moist POV.
Oh, this is bad. Wait,
no.
Fun gets one on the Waltzy.
Oh my god, what's going on right now? NRG now moving in.
He goes down.
Wait.
It's a 1v1.
Oh my god. Oh my god!
Mastiff!
Moist is eliminated. DF now dead. Are you kidding me?
The Zone 3 gondola play.
Taking the plaudits so far with 2 victories. You better believe Not Moist will be there with the conversation of potential teams to be lifting this trophy. There's Monsoon, the last remaining player for Complexity, just trying to survive here. He's going to have to go all the way final.
And we are back. Welcome back to Japan, everyone. I guess you could still have been on break in Japan, but I like to think that when you're here with us, Graceful, that's when you're really experiencing not just the best that Japan has to offer here in Sapporo, but the best that Apex Legends has to offer here at the championship. Game 2 is going to get revved up and underway quite soon, but before we jump into it, I want to talk a little bit more about Game 1. We discussed the end game in some depth, but let's go a little further back and talk about the mid game. Virtus Pro was doing really well for a little while, and we saw this southern side that you mentioned very early on was going to be very impactful, then turn out to be exactly that way. What made you say so early on that the south side was going to have a huge influence, disproportionate influence on the game that it did?
So the biggest thing is that when you're early rotating, you're really looking to read where does the zone end. Yep. When you're late rotating, you're honestly just looking to make sure that you're not getting into the chokes or getting collapsed on by 10 teams. Fnatic did just that by looting 2 entire zones, making sure they get objectives, pick the right side, which was the southern side, because they saw that, hey, people are going to rotate in from the north and the west. They decided to go for the southern side. Like I said, that's the most impactful one. That's your opening. But they weren't there alone. They were there with the likes of TSM, also the likes of...
We had TSM and we had... was it Green Stego that rotated through there?
They came in late.
They came in late.
But not only that as well is that...
Source X and Y was there.
Source X and Y is the team I was referring to, but VP was already in center underneath in the tunnel trying to gatekeep out.
Yes.
X and Y tried to force the fight. They ended up fighting, opened up for Fnatic to come in.
Yeah.
And all of this happened because what we opted to say was in the beginning, is this a good rotate into that little bus?
Yeah.
Now they're in a vulnerable spot.
Yeah.
However, TSM got flanked by EXO.
Yeah.
And that opened up for Fnatic to 3P the VP fight as well.
You know, I actually had a question about the bus because I remember when we were looking at that possible rotation for Fnatic, it seemed like their best option, but to me, it also appeared a deadly one. Mostly because we had seen FaZe play that truck earlier, and FaZe, they got obliterated. They had very little to do.
The biggest thing about taking these, like, you have to take risks to win big. And taking a risk is really important because if you don't do it, but it's also timing based. You said that FaZe got obliterated in it. They went a little bit too early. Everybody was already set up. There was no pressure. Everybody can just punish them. There's nothing scary around them. When the zone is closing, however, and you now have to keep track of, wow, there's 3 teams on the southern side. We can't just poke everybody. We need to make sure we don't get pushed. That's when you really see, you know, openings. And that happened. EXO opened up the western side and allowed Fnatic to rotate and 3P the east side with no threats at all. That opened up that side for them. They secured the bottom, and now they could climb for the win.
And now, I know that if you're just tuning in, you may be hearing Graceful and I talk about this match and going, well, I sure wish that I saw what they were talking about. And just in case that is you, let's take a look back at how last match played out. So, Graceful, because we were talking about the Fnatic rotation up, let's look a little bit further down at those teams that we were talking about. I want to start with Virtus Pro, because we've made passing mention of them quite a bit. We did not see their position. We did not see how they fell. Virtus Pro's spot, however, did look good with Caustic, and I'd say that they looked unexpectedly good this game with Caustic.
Yeah, the biggest thing about Virtus Pro is that they actually got forced off of their rotate. They tried to balloon earlier, got forced off by ninjas in pajamas. Now they were kind of forced because they got thirsted twice, I think, and they even had to reset. And I don't know if they opted for that spot initially or if they got forced into that spot, but playing that really well simply due to the fact that they had a Caustic.
Yeah, I mean, Caustic was really valuable to them. Weirdly, not so much as a defensive tool, but as an offensive tool.
Yeah.
And then by necessity only as a defensive tool. It's funny how we are in a meta where we don't see nearly as many controller legends that actually provide you things that support legends do not. It's more of on top of what the support legends give you. You're not going to hold space with just Rampart, just Watson, just Caustic. You're going to do it by amplifying that with things like Newcastle and Gibraltar as well. Now, of course, that we've got our first match done, I do want to remind everyone that we will be returning to E-District. So if you were just reeling from that last match and going, I wish that I understood how E-District could play out, perhaps if we're not going to the center of the map, then we'll have the opportunity to find out. Energy Bank was an exciting endgame, but there's a lot more of E-District to see.
Yeah, I'm personally hoping for anywhere on the southern side because I'm a big fan of Draft Point. That's my favorite part of the map. What's your favorite part of the map, Thea?
Isn't that because you land at Draft Point?
Indeed it is. It's good rotates, good fast looting. You have plenty of fights to take. It's plenty full of action, but the biggest part is that in this map, you don't feel like I could not have done anything different because you're never really getting stuck at chokes here. There's so many crooks and crannies, mazes, 5 different doors you can take, that you never really feel like everything is out of your control. And I think that's a great feeling to have. It's hard to replicate, but they really made this map super well.
Yeah. I mean, there is not just a lot of cover when you move from space to space, but even inside buildings, I think that there's a lot of nice space to play. In contrast to, say, something like Storm Point, the buildings play very differently.
Yeah.
Storm Point, it feels like there's an ingress into almost every building from every angle. So buildings are really kind of fake. Like, you stand in one and you're like, I am essentially out in the open just creatively. And, and when we're on E-District, being inside can actually really protect you, but it does come at the cost of you having limited influence as well. Our game 2 has started, but it has also stopped. And so we're going to wait for that to get going before we truly start breaking down where everyone is landing and what's going on there. To answer your previous question, though, I'd like to go to Galleria.
Galleria, that's a good pick. That's a good pick. I just really dislike looting it, but
it is
beautiful. I'll give you that.
Yeah. You know, I was surprised. So I don't like looting Street Market, so I was surprised to see Fnatic over at Street Market. I know that it's a good POI, but from a loot path perspective, it is a very inconvenient place to land.
Yeah, but you have to remember their place. Like, most of them picks, towards their playstyle, and if you're late looting, it's inconvenient, but there's a lot of loot. You have plenty of time, and they didn't rotate in until Circle 3, really. Or Circle 3 closing, almost, really. And that fits them, I guess. It just works for them, and it really did work for them.
And we've got the game back underway, so Graceful, it is the perfect time to see what happens in our second game of the AL.